Devina Mehra is with us, founder, chairperson, and managing director at First Global. Devina, good morning. Great to have you with us here. Thanks very much for joining us. We're still stuck in the range without really a line of sight, either up or down, and no real triggers as well in that sense, right, Devina? What are your thoughts to kind of sort of kick this conversation open?
Good morning. So, because the news also has been there on both sides. So, tariffs in India have been positive, which is the GST, and tariffs which President Trump has brought in has been negative. So, markets will always frustrate you one way or the other. That's the nature of markets, that they will never do what you expect them to do. And when you get frustrated is when they will suddenly do something you didn't expect. So actually sentiment is a contraindicator. So that's what all research studies across the world say. So if I go back to July, August last year, the mood was euphoric. People would come and tell me that I don't have, and this I'm talking family offices, saying I don't have unrealistic expectations, but I'll be happy with the 30% compound. I said that is an unrealistic expectation. So when the mood is so buoyant, and this is what studies show, the next period returns are below normal. And when everybody is anxious, asking, should I stop my SIPs? Should I get out of the market? The next period returns are above normal. And I don't see it, that I don't know when the market will move up or that it will. I'm not saying that it won't move down at all. But if you look at what you should be doing, I don't see an imminent crash. And most of the time, it helps to remain invested to the extent of your equity allocation. And again, I'm probably repeating myself, but don't have 100% in equity, even if you are young, even if you're in a good job. But whatever is your equity allocation, remain invested. This is not something you asked, Prashant, but I caught the tail end of what you were saying earlier. So not commenting on a stock, but one of the very interesting things, very large global fund manager told me, he was one of the people who coined the terms emerging market. So he's like that much of a stalwart. And he said that, and which I found in my life also, in my experience also, that the big money is always made when a company goes from bad to average, not from when it goes from good to very good. So that's actually true.
From one end to the other, but yeah. From I just turned, right?
Bad to average. So
bad.
I said bad to good. You said bad to yeah. Not great.
So
we both agree. Not great.
Bad to good, you are better off than somebody going from good to great. So, and this is, even in cyclical industries, I have found this so often that when the turnaround in whatever the commodity price or whatever the reason for the cyclicality comes, it is the worst stocks in that business that do the best, because the cash comes in, they can pay off their loans, and there's a reflexivity. The stock price goes up, they can raise more money if required, and suddenly, if you have a 1% a net margin, if the EBITDA goes up by 2% points, it is a tripling of the net margin. Whereas the guy who was already at 10. It is only from 10 to 12%, so the percentage is not so high. So it's a very interesting phenomena, which is why I always say that, do the actual maths. Don't do upar ka ki that this will happen to margins and that will happen to profit. Do the whole exercise as to what happens to cash flows, what happens to balance sheet if this happens. And you'll see a very different scenario emerging.
Very, very interesting. That gentleman I'm guessing you're referring to would be Mr. Jim O'Neill, the father of the BRICS acronym. No, someone else. Okay. All right. Devina is not taking names. Devina, but just to go back to the earlier point that you're making, you've always made that point. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket. And this year, if any, has been such a stark reminder of that cardinal principle of investing, right? I want to get your thoughts first on gold, then we'll talk about the US market as well, where you've always, advocated a very sensible allocation. On gold, though, because it's making a lot of investors feel silly, just to see something go up 40% in 1 year. So are we at a point of excessive optimism now? There are people who are feeling major FOMO, thinking, should I now at least have a silver ETF, gold ETF? What would you say?
I would say be very careful. I saw a headline somewhere saying that gold has not seen this kind of rally since 1979. That's the last time it saw this kind of rally. So I said, let's go forward from 1979 and see what happens. And gold made a high in dollar terms in 1980. And thereafter, if I go from 1980 to 1999, 19 years, imagine what the return on that investment in gold was.
So
It was a
that,
neg- it
so
was
that
a
doesn't answer
negative-
my question. Buy or not buy now? Those who
Coming to that. So-
bought are super happy. They're waiting for a bumper Diwali. The ones who didn't allocate enough are wondering, what did I do this year?
I'm just coming to that. So it
Okay.
came down 62% from that high. So the 1980 price of gold was not crossed till 2007. For 27 years, it was underwater. Going down 62%, as I said, in the interim. The next high, it came down 40%. So if you look at the dollar chart of gold, it has been more volatile than equities. Gold has been more volatile than the S&P 500. So it's no safe haven. In rupees, the chart looks good. So even the time that the dollar price went down 60% over 19 years, and it tripled in rupee terms because rupee has been depreciating. So at that time, the gold was the only way to get kind of overseas exposure. But now you're not stuck to gold. So now it is in frothy territory. I'm not saying it may or may not go up. But this is the time when you get FOMO is when you enter at the wrong time, because usually that asset has had a huge run up. Everybody on the street knows about it. And then when you get it, it is dangerous. So have some gold in your asset allocation, but it should not be 25, 30%. And yes, we have added silver also, because silver is looking good compared to gold. And silver also has industrial usage, and with the renewables, that is one area where silver is used. So actually, in terms of industrial demand, also silver has been going up. Coming to the other part of your question, which was on global allocation. So suddenly, because the Indian market has not been doing very well, people have started thinking global. But number one, you said I asked people to go for US allocation. No, I don't. I always say global. US is not the world. That's the number one thing to remember. US has been outperforming for a very long time. Doesn't mean it will always outperform. Since January in our global funds, in fact, we've been underweight US. We've been overweight Europe. So till June, July, of course, Europe had huge outperformance. Now US has done a bit better in the last couple of months. And we've been overweight China since last year. So you have to make these tactical reallocations. Unfortunately, because now suddenly India has not been doing well, people are talking global. A lot of people with no global expertise whatsoever are positioning themselves as global experts. So beware of that.
Hi, Devina. Good to see you. And the point on gold, there are a few periods that I went back, 45 years or thereabouts in terms of data. 1980 to 1986, gold didn't move much. 1992 to 2002, I think it didn't move that much, in terms of, I think, percentage terms, it was some double digits across all those years. And 2012 to 2019, that's the time when it didn't move too much. But in the last 1 year, that's been the asset to go forward. That said, Devina, let's talk about equities. Give us a couple of stocks with all due disclosures that you all are very, very bullish at this juncture. Couple of stocks, if you could name it, please.
No. So let me tell you this, that recently one of the bigger banks asked us that, which are your high conviction bets? And I sent them a 3-page note on why, in principle, we do not have high conviction bets. Because what is a high conviction bet? That you bought into a story, you're married to a stock. That's the last thing we want to do. So we have a very diversified portfolio in our PMS. In fact, even in our small case, we typically have 25, 30 stocks. And so it's across industries. So it is really, I'm not making a big bet on a single stock ever. That's not something I do. So where we are overweight has been since last year. So now almost, 1.5 years plus has been pharma, healthcare, auto components. We've added a couple of auto companies in the last rebalance. What has increased and become overweight in 2025 has been FMCG. After that, of course, there have been individual stock picks, something in chemicals, etc. Banks, we are not overweight, but we are holding more than what we typically hold, because banking as a sector after many, many years of underperformance, is doing better this year. So that would be the broad strokes. But I mean, our PMS is called India Super 50 because we hold 50, 55 stocks. so it's not like a one or two stock bet. And no one knows the future. So never tell yourself that I know the long-term future of this company, whether it is HDFC Bank or Amazon or Titan, or even the management could not have told you the 20, 30-year trajectory.
What are the newest things you've done in this portfolio, Devina, if I were to put it like that?
So this year, more FMCG companies have been coming up. So as I said, this year we have become overweight in FMCG. We've added a couple more of the auto stocks. We already held auto. So that is, and as I said, we've also added to banking this year. Now, of course, now that the quarter is ending, now we will be looking at everything once from base zero. So we forget about what we hold and we look at if we had cash today, where would we invest? Of course, typically from one quarter to the other, 85-90% of the list is the same. But as a discipline, it is very important to tell yourself that, because there's something called endowment bias where you overvalue what you hold. So I say the hold rating exists only because of endowment bias, because if you see objectively anything you won't buy today, you should not be holding.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Devina, since you have a global perspective, you've looked at other markets and what's happened, bigger trends, etc., right? You got to, obviously you do apply some of that to, what happens sometimes, not always, but you got to use that knowledge in the Indian context as well. A lot of trends are global in that sense, right?
Right.
And in a variety of businesses, and I can, there are companies, for example, in logistics where stuff which has happened globally, and these are newer businesses, relatively newer listings in that sense. Of course, in compute and AI, etc., we don't have very much, but we have a couple which, of course, now are trading at 50 times forward earnings, etc. So valuations perhaps are a bit of an issue. What else? I mean, you got a few construction, for example, prefab stuff. I mean, is there? Do you kind of sort of actively look at some of this stuff? Because you got there's the old economy, banking and consumer and FMCG. I mean, that'll continue, and it's got to be a part of the portfolio. But these are more niche businesses where you got to be careful, but makes sense to look at them, doesn't it?
See, anything new is high risk. So if you look at new technologies, I read the farewell column of a technology columnist after 40 years of writing that column. And he said, I can just go back and say so many technologies were launched with great fanfare, which went nowhere. So 3D televisions, Google Glass, Apple Car, and I can go on. So one is that which technology will succeed? How long will it take to succeed? We think, electric vehicles is something new. Reva car was launched, I think, 23 or 24 years ago in India, I'm talking about. I'm not even talking globally. So which technology will succeed? If it succeeds, which company will succeed? Will it make enough return on capital? That's the other part. So if I go back to the internet boom, there was this thing that, fine, I mean, whoever wins, we'll need the internet's infrastructure. We'll need things going across continents. So there was this company called Global Crossing, which laid on the
famous case.
Yes,
No, that's a very famous case. My question is not that, Devina. My question is proven stuff outside, which is happening here now. This is not stuff which is...
I mean, AI, what is proven stuff?
Not AI. I'm not talking about AI. AI was just gave an example. I'm talking about... something. I'm not naming names because you don't want to name names and you don't want. I mean, you can't.
Recently, there was this study on where how these AI models were being used, and during summer vacation, 70% of the usage went down.
I know that.
So something you might invest in, and now to be in the game, you have to invest. You have to invest in the data centers. You have to invest in the AI. You are hiring people, individual people at $100 million, $200 million, $500 million. But will the market pay the return? So global profit example was only that infrastructure was required, but you will not get a return on capital on that. So that's the part which is hard. And a technology that succeeds can still be a graveyard for investors. Automobiles and aviation from the 20th century are like poster child for that, that they changed the way the human beings lived, but they didn't make returns for the investors.
No,
Also
absolutely.
be very careful. I mean, the story is very interesting at any point in time. Again, data centers. What is data center? When you set up a data center, what is it? It's a lot of real estate, lot of equipment which depreciates very quickly, a lot of power and energy. So that is what
Absolutely.
It's a
Sometimes I feel, Prashant, Devina was listening into her as well. Sometimes I feel maybe on a lighter note, it's easier to sell more complex stories, right? If you're selling, if you have to convince investors about a toothpaste business, 100 questions are going to be asked, right? But it's data centers, it's some
एक ही question है,
voodoo.
दिन में कितने बार ब्रश करते हो?
But it's new age tech which has not been proven. Maybe it's easier to sell in the hype era. We are in the hype era. How it ends, we will all find out. I think in a couple of years.
I think absolutely what Devina is saying, absolutely, completely cautionary advice, absolutely good stuff. And maybe this is not the platform, Devina, but maybe we can invite you back on maybe some other program and we can go into some of this detail, right? Because this is interesting stuff. It doesn't apply to here and now, this talk or that talk, but I think how you think about some of these things, I think it's important to debate and discuss. Thank you very much, Devina, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank
Great
you, ma'am.
speaking with you. Really appreciate your time here on CNBC TV 18.